Okay, so we are going to be talking now about some examples of security and privacy in social media. Particularly, we are going to be looking at Facebook in particular because that is a social media platform that is quite popular and that a lot of people use. So we talk about privacy and security policies. Remember that we talked about privacy and security policies in various forms. We talked about access control, for example. We've talked about passwords. We've talked about malware, things like spoofing. And all of this we've raised because we want to talk about the fact that you need to be careful about what you publish on social media platforms, and you need to take precautions both in terms of protecting the security of your social media platform and protecting the privacy of your personal data. We talked about anonymization as one mechanism that social media platforms use to try to help you to protect your personal information. So if we begin with Facebook, for example, Facebook has the nice quality or particularity of allowing you to have on the social media platform at least people who exist in some form, so represented by a valid email address that is registered with some service provider, and also with a valid password that allows them to log on to the social network platform. So if we look, for example, in this case, by trying to log in with the wrong email address, we get a message to say that this email address is invalid, and so this tells us that at least this social media platform is doing a little background check to make sure that the email addresses that people try to use to log on to the social media platform are valid email addresses. And so it asks you, for example, to insert a valid email address, and only with a valid email address are you going to be able to log onto the social media platform. However, that doesn't necessarily protect us from people who are going to do bad things. So, for example, this profile of Mary Gold has been created, first of all, by creating an email address that is fake, so some random email address, and that email address, because it exists, allows Mary Gold to create a profile on the social media platform. What she can then do is to add information. So, for example, it will ask her where she's located at, and she could decide to say something like she doesn't have it down, which is great because it allows her to remain anonymous, but not so great if she's going to do bad stuff on the social media platform. You can then go on to, she could then go on to then decide to try to make friends on the social media platform, right? So she could look at, for example, various friends, decide what she wants to do in terms of creating privacy settings. So remember what I said about transitive disclosures and the fact that if you want things to be made visible only to your friends, you want to say something like you want this visible only to your friends. But if you allow this to be visible to the friends of your friends, it means that you can have this information be in some way almost public. And you can restrict, for example, comments, notifications, and so on. And Mary Gold can do this and look as though she was some person trying to remain anonymous, but also be able to make friends with other people on the social media platform. In terms of privacy restrictions, Mary Gold could also go, for example, into the privacy shortcut. So typically in Facebook, you have this somewhere at the very top. So for example, here, okay. And what happens when you click on this little lock is that you get some menu that tells you different choices that you can have with respect to your data. So for example, who can see your stuff, who can contact you, and how do you stop someone from bothering you. So remember what we said, for example, about cyberbullying and cyber stalking. This is where you would go to block the person who is giving you trouble. Okay. So remember also that we talked about anonymity, and we talked about the fact that Mary Gold, for example, who in the other slide was represented as Alice, could decide to make friendships. So pretty much using the profile that we had in the previous slide, right? She could make friends with other users and do everything as normal on the social network platform. Okay, and then she could continue that friendship making procedure to make other friends with other groups of users. So for example, Tom, Dick, and Harry could become her friends, just as we talked about when we talked about social network anonymization and social network de-anonymization. What you will be surprised about is that there are weak links. So for example, Mary Gold is somebody completely unknown to this person, but this person has accepted the friendship because Mary Gold looks like an authentic person that she could become friends with. And because of the social engineering aspect of social networks, there are other propositions of other friends whom Mary Gold can contact to become friends with. And she does that and becomes friends with them, looking, for example, at her homepage and deciding which one of these people that she might be interested in. And eventually, she can go on to create a group that allows her to contact all of these people. So going back pretty much to this image, right, you can see from what I'm saying that it's quite easy for Mary Gold to insert herself into this group of users, provided at least one of the users accepts to become friends with her. Okay, so in order to create closed groups, as we talked about when we talked about preventing de-anonymization attacks, just as we said we've just talked about, Facebook has the nice feature that it allows you to create new groups. So with this feature that I just showed you in the previous slide of creating a group, you can create a group that is public, that is closed, or that is secret. Okay, if it's public, then pretty much anybody can see the posts that you put onto the group, and both the members of the group and the posts that these members make. You typically want to avoid creating a public group unless you don't really care about the information that is published. In most cases, what you will do is to create a closed group, okay? A closed group will allow anybody who is in the group to communicate. Anybody else could know that this group exists, but they wouldn't be able to see what is happening in the group. The best case, of course, is a secret group, okay? The nice particularity about that is that it is almost invisible to anybody else on the social network, so it takes a lot of experience or guessing to discover that this secret group exists, or maybe some careless comment from one of the members of the group to discover that the group exists. The problem is that if you want other people to join the group eventually, then the secret group requires that you contact the person that you're wanting to join the particular social network group that you have created. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for today. Next time we talk about phishing and scams. We look at a de-anonymization example. And what I want you to remember from what we have just talked about is the fact that privacy settings are important. They are not so difficult to set on a social network platform. You just need to be a little bit curious. Social media, for example, such as Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all make these possibilities available to you. So do a little bit of searching. It's usually on the first page of the social media platform that you're dealing with because they want you to know about this. So try to use this. We looked at anonymous group creation, and we saw that the carelessness of one person in the group can lead to the de-anonymization of the group. So you need to be careful, not just to protect yourself, but also the people with whom you interact.